What's going on, guys? Jesse504 here, bringing you my PBA Season 3 draft analysis. And if you haven't already noticed, I don't know how you wouldn't have, but I'm currently in FACECAM right up there. But, yeah, figured I'm going to try this out. I was probably going to try it out when I got my capture card anyways, but that's not for a couple weeks. And might as well just start it with this brand new PBA Season 3. This season we allowed S-tier Pokemon, which are mons that normally are high-end tier 1s or Ubers, but like the Ubers have like their best setup options cut off pretty much. So it's like Deoxys, Speeder, Naganadel with like no nasty plot, or Genesect with no agility or shift gear or rock polish, whatever it has. But that's kind of where we went with this season, and we also decided to add in megas that are normally just barely banned, not like Mega Salamence or Mega Mewtwo or anything, but more like mons like the Mega Latias, Mega Metagross, and then some megas that are sometimes allowed with their best options cut off from them, like Mega Kangaskhan, no Seismic Toss, we allowed Seismic Toss, Mega Zam, we allowed Nasty Plot, Mega Blastoise, we allowed Shell Smash. So that's kind of where this season went, but it is still just a standard 5-tier draft. You got to pick one of all of the tiers from S tier down to tier 5. A mega that the best ones obviously cost you 40 points, then to 20, then 0, plus 20, plus 40, and then 4 free Pokemon with 400 free points, and then that obviously changes a little bit with your mega. But with that all being said, I picked at 14 out of 20, so a fairly late pick without really the benefits of a wheel, which wasn't what I was looking for. But there was a mon that was still there that I knew if it got to me, I wanted to try out, and I felt kind of bad because both of the Mega Latias were on the board. I didn't really want to leave one of those on the board, but Darkrai was there. Darkrai is a mon that I've wanted to try out for a while. It is a great fast special attacker with a solid move pool as well, and then it can take a hit, not obviously the greatest, but 70 HP, 90 defense, 90 speed F, it can take some hits, and then 90 attack, it can set up Sword Stance, but it cannot use Nasty Plot. That's what we decided to make Darkrai more balanced, but it still has a great offensive move pool and some support moves as well. I believe it has Knockoff and Thunder Wave in its move pool, so those are cool options. But I'm just excited to use it in a standard format, see how good it actually is, because I feel like taking a Mega Lati might have been like better on paper, but I've wanted to try out Darkrai in a standard format, so yeah, a mon that I don't think I would use otherwise if it wasn't allowed. So, Darkrai, welcome to the squad. Up next, round number 2, there was a mon sitting there that I thought synergized incredibly well with Darkrai, and it was another mon that is normally restricted, but Mega Kangaskhan with Seismic Toss. What an absolutely busted Pokemon. Because it 2-hit KOs anything that is 1, not a ghost type, and 2, has below base 100 HP, which is most of the metagame. And then Darkrai can do a fantastic job at handling ghosts that Mega Kangaskhan doesn't handle herself, although she has access to Crunch and Sucker Punch to deal with ghosts very well. Additionally, Wish is a nice move to support the team, coming off of a pretty high base 105 HP, along with 100 in both of the defenses, means it's going to be hard to take her out, especially because she's only weak to fighting, and while Darkrai is also weak to fighting, I feel like the rest of my draft does really well at sort of supporting the idea that my top mons are fighting weak, so I'm going to need some ways to beat fighting types really well. But other than that, just solid, bulky mega that also hits really hard, and then with that parental bond ability, can sort of double the effects of moves. Because now, obviously, I can't run return, but I can run Body Slam and try to get paralyses off of that. I can run obviously Seismic Toss and just hit for a static 200 every time. But it just seems like a really fun mon to try out, and so with Darkrai, I think it synergizes incredibly well, other than the one fighting weakness that they both share. So in round 3, I had to get something to sort of help me against that fighting weakness, and that is Tapu Finley. Tapu Finley is a very defensive Pokemon with 130 def, 115 defense, and 70 HP, but it also has some attacking stats of 95 in special attack and 85 in speed. So it also summons the Misty Terrain to prevent my team from being statused, which is fairly nice. But it also prevents them from being statused. If like I wanted to like run Toxic on Finny, I can't. But it can set up really well with like Iron Defense to boost its defense, Calm Mind to boost its special attack, special defense. It has Nature's Madness. I think this is the best user of it, just knocking off 50%. Sort of similar to Mega Kangaskhan in that way, in that the Seismic Toss is just going to hit for like a static amount, same with Nature's Madness, although obviously Nature's Madness does depend on how much health my opponent has, so that'll be interesting. But it has access to the screens, it has Taunt, so it can really just do a lot. It has a pretty good move pool, and it's a great fighting check, and that's really what I was looking for. Being able to switch in on those fighting types seems really nice to me, and it's also a nice bulky water. I normally don't go for bulky waters that much, so having Tapu Finley on my team seems really nice for me, and really this whole draft is sort of mons that I haven't used at all or haven't used in a while, and I'm just seeing if this new sort of team playstyle suits me or if I'm really just going to need to like change out half of the team to start winning games. So it'll be interesting to see for sure. But going into round 4, another mon that I really liked is Scizor. I really wanted to try this thing out for a while in a metagame without hidden power. It seems really strong. Obviously, it's only weak to fire, and Tapu Finley resists that. Although, I feel like right now Tapu Finley has a lot of pressure on it because it has to sort of take those fighting hits, but also those fire hits. But thankfully, Scizor is a steel type that is not weak to fighting, so it can do a little bit better at taking those things on. And then, with its nice attack, it can fire off strong bullet punches, and especially with that Technician ability, and then also can U-turn out and just give me momentum. And like Tapu Finley, which I didn't mention on there, but it has access to Defog to keep the hazards away. It's fairly bulky, can take hits pretty well. 70 HP, 100 defense, 100 or 80 speed def, and it is kind of slow, which is really the only thing holding it back. But I think that it can be really fun to use, just like Technician boosted, like Choice Banded, Life Orbed, or Swords Dance boosted even. Bullet Punches seem really fun to just throw off of this thing. It's nice, 130 base attack stat, and just having access to nice moves like Knockoff, as dual Wing Beat now, seems just really fun to use. But that's really all that I have to say about Scizor. So let's move right on to Moltres. Moltres is a mon that I probably wouldn't have picked, but recently I've been using it a lot in mock battles, and I've found some success with it. I feel like it's a mon that can just be a really good job at just being a sort of bulky pivot option. Obviously, it also sort of makes my opponents think twice about clicking U-turn, especially when this thing can just switch in and then potentially just make a nice flame body burn and not really take too much from a U-turn. Obviously, it's somewhat bulky, 90 base HP, 90 base defense, 85 speed def, and it can roost off damage really well. And then with 125 base special attack, it can fire off some strong flamethrowers, air slashes I think it gets, but I haven't really looked too much into Moltres, sort of just doing some surface level stuff with it at the moment. But I'm excited to fully explore this mon, and I feel like it is another great pick to synergize with Scizor, but it's also another fighting resist for my team. So I just felt like it was a really nice synergy pick to have here. Also, it was in tier 3, and I feel like that was a solid price to pay for it, especially because it has access to heavy duty boots now, so it doesn't need to take 50% when switching into rocks, and that makes it a more consistent defogger than it would have been. So that's why we got Moltres, but now heading into round 6, we picked up Dragalgi. Dragalgi is a mon that I used once before, but it didn't really come to a lot of games. But I feel like when it did come, it did a lot of work. Obviously, it has a somewhat low 97 base special attack, but thanks to adaptability, its Draco Meteors and its Sludge Waves hit really hard. Flip Turn is a real nice new move that it got for momentum, and it can lay Toxic Spikes, which is the main selling point for my team at least, was that it could lay Toxic Spikes, which over time can just start wearing things down so that Mega Kangaskhan is in range to kill them, or Darkrai is in range to clean. So that's really what I was thinking with this Dragalgi pick, was nice early game set Toxic Spikes. Also is really tough to switch into other than Steel types, which I'm going to get some mons that can hopefully take advantage of that. But with Flip Turn, it can just slowly get me momentum. Obviously, only 44 speed, which means I'll probably be moving second, which is really nice to take a hit with that fantastic 123 base Spadef, and then get the hell out of there. Dragalgi, it's definitely if I expect too much from it, I feel like I could be underwhelmed, which is why I'm gonna really try to make sure that I know what this thing is doing ahead of time, like before the game, rather than in the game, and I'm just gonna think that it's gonna do more than it is. But I've seen a couple YouTubers pick it up, and I've just been watching their games with it, and it seems like a really solid option. But that all being said, let's head into the round 7 pick, and Mesprit. Mesprit seems like a really solid option because its stats are just really nice everywhere. Obviously, 105 in both attacking and defensive stats seem really nice on paper. And then its 80 base speed is nice to fire off some fast U-turns, but also sometimes slow U-turns. And 80 base HP means that it can take hits fairly well. It's also a rocker, which the team didn't have prior, so it can do that job very consistently, I think. But it really just has a nice move pool. I believe it obviously has stab. It has a bunch of options. I believe that this one gets Thunderbolt and Flamethrower, if I remember correctly. So those are two nice options to have. And it can also run physical. Obviously, its move pool there I don't think is as great, but it still has a nice 105 base attack stat. So it can just run offensive, defensive, mix between those two, like support. I really like what Mesprit can do for the team. Also just a nice rocker that I didn't really have before. So that's my Mesprit pick, but let's head on into the next pick, round 8. We decided to go for the Golurk pick. Golurk is a mon that, again, got a nice new tool in the DLC in the form of Poltergeist. Coming off of that base 124 attack stat is real nice. 3 nice yet situational abilities. Obviously, No Guard is probably this thing's bread and butter, able to hit its Poltergeist 100% of the time, able to hit its Dynamic Punch 100% of the time. Really just firing off solid moves. Klutz is more situational. If I'm heading against a more stally team, being able to trick an Assault Vest potentially could be real nice. Having to not deal with the consequences of items. Well, on paper it may seem bad, just being able to trick an Assault Vest is always cool. And then Iron Fist, which is really when I don't think I'd ever run it. Unless I needed it for one specific calc, like with an Ice Punch, let's say. But really, I think my bread and butter ability this season is going to be No Guard. With Poltergeist, Earthquake, Rocks is another rocker, and then some sort of coverage. I feel like this thing can do it all. It is a little slow, only 55 base speed, but I feel like it can take the hits with 89 base HP and 80 in both defenses. Also, nice typing in Ghost and Ground gives me 3 nice immunities. Obviously, fighting immunity is really nice. Normal immunity, nice to have as well. And then an electric immunity really helps out the team, especially for Tapu Finley and Moltres. Because right now my only resistance was Dragalgi, so having another solid check to those seemed really nice. But that's really all I've got to say about my Golurk pick. So let's look at the next option, round 9. Round 9, I was originally planning on getting Chestnut, but some clown decided that they were going to draft a bunch of Mons and then just drop half their team. And Chestnut was one of those Mons. And I made these slides and I was too lazy to change them when Chestnut became available. So Lycanroc Dusk was the pick here. I also had Lycanroc Midday on my plan, but I figured why not pick up this Lycanroc form instead. Seems like a really solid attacker. 110 speed helps plug between Kangaskhan and Darkrai. I think this thing does that very well. And then with 170 base attack plus Tough Claws, it can hit things really hard. It has a massive move pool. It has obviously Excel Rock, which is a nice priority move. It has Sucker Punch for priority as well. Stone Edge, Tough Claws boosted close combats, Play Roughs, Iron Head, I think. It has Drill Run. I'm not sure if that one's boosted or not. The Elemental Fangs. Really just a massive move pool. Can do a lot. So I'm excited to make use of this Lycanroc. Another rocker, and while it doesn't do it as well as my other 2 rockers, it can still do it. So basically, this is all of the hazards I'm going to be getting, pretty much. So we got 3 consistent defoggers, and a T-Spiker, and 3 rockers. I think that my hazards should be solid for the season. No spinner, but I feel like I didn't really need one. So that's kind of where I stood on that. But let's get back to this Lycanroc pick. Just Tough Claws, boosted attacks, especially like if I Swords Dance up and then I can just start prioritying things down. Seems real nice to pair with Scizor. Also, another physical attacker was kind of nice because I feel like I had like one more special attacker than physical, so just picking up a physical attacker was kind of nice here. But let's head into our round 10 pick. Obviously the board was getting kind of tight, but there was one mod that was still there, a solid Chestnut replacement, and while it doesn't have access to the spikes that Chestnut does, Varision, it shares the same type and is much faster. Obviously it has a very similar speed tier to Lycanroc, so I feel like that could have potentially been better, but Varision still, I've used this one before, and this and Golurk are the only 2 mons that I've used on like a complete league before I like would drop them, or like before the league died. So these 2 I've had some fun using, especially Varision. I know that like its attacking stats are only at base 90, but you cannot let Varision get set up, otherwise it can just threaten to claim Grass, Fighting. It can go physical or special, because it has access to both Swords Dance and Calm Mind, and it's just a nice special wall as well. Really, as long as you're staying clear of flying moves, it can take most special hits, at least decently. So there's that going for it. Obviously, its physical defense is a little bit lackluster and only base 72, but with 91 base HP, it can still take a hit, and then obviously it's fast at base 108 speed. So Varision was a mon that I knew I could probably make use of fairly well, and especially because it's a somewhat offensive grass, and generally I like those, but it can also run defensive. So for tier 4, I figured this thing was kind of a steal, and I had to grab it. But that really rounds out mostly my 10 mons that I feel like I'm going to be bringing, but we had to get a tier 5 Pokemon, so a Moga. A Moga is probably not coming to any games, and if it comes, it'll just, I'm not really sure how much it really can do, but it has bad stats other than speed. It has like some nice support options. I believe it has Nuzzle. It might have Tailwind. but I'm not 100% sure on that. It might have defog, again, not 100% sure on that, but it just seems like a nice electric type. I believe it has an immunity to electric with one of its abilities, as well as another immunity to ground. Is always nice to have. But I'm really not expecting too much out of Amolgas, and so with that in mind, I'm just excited to see if it can prove me wrong and be a valuable member to the team. I'm sure it'll hopefully come for at least one game, but other than that, I feel like my other 10 Mons are really solid, and then having a Molga here as just an electric type that is fast and can be annoying seems nice. So that's all I really have to say about this team. Not really 100% my style, but I'm excited to see how it goes. So with that all being said, until next time, Jesse504 out. Peace.